Welcome, everybody, to It Tastes Different Gaming News. What's in the news today? Well, Sony exec says you don't have to do live service, but you have to do live service. So before we jump into it, make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, all those good things that keep you up to date with what we like to talk about, video games. So let's jump into it. Ex-PlayStation exec says studios aren't forced into live service stuff. They just feel it gives them a better chance of getting a project approved and supported. So you don't have to, but you're gonna. So it's okay, everyone. Former PlayStation executive, and I hope I don't mispronounce his name, Shuhei Yoshida, has said that, to his knowledge, none of the first-party studios under the console maker's command have been forced into making live service games. They've more likely just chosen to get on board with the big initiative for the small reason of thinking it'd give them a better chance of having a project actually be picked up and supported. So Shuhei said this in an interview with Sacred Symbols Plus, Push Square. It's interesting. It's interesting, to be fair, just the kind of thing you'd expect who's been the boss of a big company like that. After saying that bit about the studios not being forced in doing live service things, Yoshida outlined, from my experience, when studios see the company has a big initiative, they realize writing on that gives them a better chance of getting a project approved and supported. It's not like current PlayStation boss Herman Hulse is telling them they need to make the live services games. He continued, it's like mutual. Yeah, mutual. So, so basically what it comes down to, before I jump to one of these gentlemen here for their opinion, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. But if you don't do what you don't want to, you can just get your ass out the door. What it comes down to. So let's jump into one of these gentlemen's thoughts and opinions here. Let's go to Pat, who I just found out was the 1992 Southwest Power Bottom champion of Missouri. So congratulations on that, Pat. Pat,
I unseated your reign.
You did.
That you held for many, many years.
You did. I had the Taco Bell World Champions coming up too, and you ruined it for me.
I mean, this was the same guy that also, you know, in that, I believe that same interview talked about his this studio got closed down because it was harder to put out double A games.
Yes.
Which, you know, I would probably tend to believe him a little bit. I mean, I would agree with him that, you know, I don't know if that's the reason for the studio shutdown, as he mentioned, but studios like Sony and the big dogs out there have to push a bunch of AAA games. Or if you're, who was it? Was it Ubisoft that made the first quadruple A? I can't remember which studio said that, but you know, if you're not making a
Skull and Bones,
that was your game, buddy.
If you're not making a quadruple A game, you're not doing it right. So I mean, because we have the market filled, right? We have the games, the studios that make AAA games, which is the big people, the big ones like Sony and Microsoft and all those, the really expensive studios. And then the ones that aren't filling that niche are the indie games, right? So I would imagine if your studio is centered around AA games, then you're probably going to have a hard time, right? Because you're fitting in a weird spot. You're not quite indie, but you're not quite AAA. So you're kind of in an odd spot, because right now there's a lot of kick for indies. There's a lot of force behind indie studios because they've been putting out some bangers of games, right? And so being an indie studio gives you a little bit of some cred, right? You're like, hey, I'm an indie studio. You're like, man, these indie studios are making some great games out here. But then
if you're not AAA studio, then you're Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Right.
Studio who makes a great game and it gets
shut down because it didn't make AAA money, and you don't have the You can't basically put your reliance that we're a small indie studio. So you're not quite small enough to be indie, and you're not quite large enough to be AAA. So the game that you put out has to be able to make AAA studio money, and that's just not going to happen, right? So, and I would believe him on that. I wholeheartedly do. And so I would believe that when he says that it's almost like being told, you're being voluntold, right? If you want to, don't come to us. You know, you can come to us with something other than a live service game, but don't do it. You know, you're being voluntold. This is optional, and it's optional in quotes, which means it's required to pitch a live service game. If you come to me pitching your game, you better tell me how you can turn it into a live service game. That's pretty much what I'm hearing here. You know, the writing's on the wall. It's not mandatory. You know, that's the what's the old we have a team outing that's not mandatory, but if you don't show up, it's going to look unfavorable on you, right? So if you show up in his office and you pitch a game and it's not a live service game, they're going to be like, what are you doing here? What's your name again? I think HR wants to see you on Monday, you know? So I would believe that. And with the way that a lot of things are going, I wholeheartedly believe that, because we just heard about freaking, them trying to turn Dragon Age, the last Dragon Age game, into a live service game, and it was dropped at like the midway point through development, or 3/4 of the way through development, that they were like, maybe this really isn't the type of game for a live service game. I believe everybody and their brother out there that makes AAA games or quadruple A games, if you're Ubisoft, is trying to make a live service game out of everything they put out, because it's, as we say, we need to coin the phrase minimal effort for maximum profits in a game. You know, we need to put out this, we need to, and then what we need to do is we need to fire the studio, most of the developers behind the game, and live off of a skeleton crew that can just add microtransaction items, and then we'll trickle out the content every 3 or 4 years. You know, we'll add something new to the game every 3 to 4 years, but we have enough skins and accessories and loot boxes to last us the next 10 years. So we can fire 50 to 75% of our staff and just eke by on this. You know, that's the model for AAA and quadruple A studios. These
looking
days.
At you, Marvel Rivals, for that one.
You know,
hint.
Yeah. So that's the market today in video games, is how can I sell you something once and profit off of it for the next 20 years without doing much work to it? What I want to do is I want to put my 3 to 5 years of development time into this game and not spend another dollar on development for at least 10 years. We want to build everything in the game at day one, and I'm going to slice off 0.1% of it and release it to you. And then every 3 months, I'm going to give you a 16th or a 32nd of that piece of that game and push it out the door, along with like twice as much microtransaction material. That's the game model today that everybody is going for. And it's because a free-to-play game, that we all know what it is, has made a killing off of this. You know, so it's just unfortunate, I think, to hear this, but I think we all believed it anyway. I'm surprised that Microsoft's not doing it. I'm surprised that Valve didn't come out with some microtransaction live service stuff, you know, and I'm surprised.
That's their first add-on.
Yeah. You know, I am really surprised. You know, I'm surprised that Civ 7 didn't come out as some live service game. You know, we'll give you the first 3 leaders for free. And then, you know, you can play a long time to unlock the others one by one, or, you know, you can buy them in the store. That's the Firaxis model, right?
That's not Piranha Byte didn't release that one, did they?
Right? That's their model, right? Because they release a little DLC every 6 months or 3 months, it feels like, in Piranha Byte. You know, so, but I mean, that's the way it is, right? We release a full game. We build a full game, but we carve out a piece of it to give you day one, and then we have a little bit more. We'll roll out in 30 days, in 60 days, or 90 days, a little bit more in the next 90 days, and then after a year, 2 years, we'll have a little DLC, which is, instead of it being like a 32nd of a slice, it's, you know, it's a 16th of a slice. You know, I mean, that's really what it feels like. Everything that they pump out, and then they'll be like, oh, the game's getting a little bit long in the tooth. We're going to do a graphics update after about 10 years. and that's where they do their next development sprint. And then for the next 10 years, everything just looks the same. I mean, that's what it feels like in these games. That's what it feels like to me anyway on a live service game. Yeah. They're going to ruin the gaming industry, or they're going to put studios out of business. And what I mean by studios out of business is Ubisoft's going to go get flushed down the toilet because they're not going to learn the lesson until it's too late. And then Sony's going to close down more studios, and Microsoft's going to close down more studios because they're going to get the memo too late. The memo is out, and it's been out for years with all these companies. They just didn't read it. They were like, oh yeah. They're like, that's my business model. I can't rewrite my business model. You know, I can't make more money with more. I can't make, I want to make more money with less. That's their thing, right? I want to make more money with less. And how can I do that? Microservices, microtransactions, and loot boxes and battle passes. How much of it can I shove into one game? I want to charge you $80 for this game. I want to charge you $20 every 3 months for the battle pass. I want to charge you $20 for skins on the store. I want to charge you to log into our launcher. That's what I want to charge you every time. And you know how they're going to accomplish that? There's going to be an advertisement every turn of the game next, because that's the way to make it even more profitable for them. Our launcher has an ad for somebody else's product. Then when you're in the game, there's going to be ads for the other products. I mean, it's just a never-ending cycle of how can I make this rock bleed even more? And you are the rock. It used to be, and I've said this before, when something's free, you're the product. And now it turns out it doesn't matter if it's free, you're the product anymore. You know, you are the product, no matter whether the game was free or not now. So you're always the product. We're going to sell everything we can about you, and we're going to profit off of every penny that you can afford to drop on this game. And that's the way we want it. We don't care if it's a 99-cent buy, a $2 buy, a 10, 50, 20, or $100 buy. We're just going to, if we have 1 million players and we can get $1 out of 1 million players, that's $1 million. But, you know, we'll really profit off of those players that, you know, if we get 10,000 players that are willing to spend an extra $50 or $10, $20. And it's just, I can't wait for gamers to go broke quick enough. That's the whole thing, is I cannot wait for gamers to go broke so they stop buying the bullshit and the game companies start going under, and we start a new generation of game companies that aren't bound to all this bullshit of microtransactions, loot boxes, that go back to what the indie gamers are doing right now. Indie gamers are going to rule the world because these AAA studios are too hung up on doing greedy bullshit like microtransactions and all that. Ubisoft made the announcement that they don't care how the gaming industry is going. They have a understanding they're going to put out one live service game a year. You're going to kill off your studios faster than shit with that mentality, because nobody wants your damn live service game, Ubisoft. You have proven this over and over again. Sony had to learn a hard lesson with Concord. You know, they shut down the Sony Japan studios, pumped all that money into Concord just for Concord not to do anything, you know.
And it was closed, what, 12 days? Ain't that like a
11 days? They announced it like 11 days after they were shutting the game down, right?
And on the 12th days, the doors were locked.
Yeah. So I just, you know, it feels to me like we have to just force these AAA game studios to shut their doors so the indie developers that aren't doing the microtransaction stuff can just take over. And just, you know, start from scratch. These guys are the new leaders of the industry. Make the stuff that comes out complete and is good to go. We, you know, I myself am tired of loot box. You know, I'm tired of microtransactions. I'm tired of going, hey, that's cool looking. How do I get that? And when you look it up, it's like, oh, go spend $20. Mm-hmm. You can land on that Godzilla dildo from 20 feet up, because I'm not buying it. Take a leap off of it and just fall on it. You be the new power bottom. That's what they are. Because I am tired of it. So sick and tired of seeing that. You know, Diablo 4 like broke me with their microtransaction store, because it's like, here's a game. And I was one of the people that bought the $80 bundle of that game because I thought I'd be playing it for a long time. The game dropped. I got into it. It's like, hey, check out this $20 skin. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to buy the battle pass. you got it for free with the base game, but next season you got to buy it. And I'm just like, fuck you, is what I thought. And that's what I feel about Blizzard. I'm like, fuck you guys. You can keep your bullshit. I am not spending another fucking dime on your game. And I have not. I played season 1 and I only played it because Nick was playing it, and I have not come back. I'm like, fuck you guys. I am at that point to where anytime I see a microtransaction store and a battle pass and a full price game, I just say fuck you to the developer, because you don't deserve my money. Least effort for the most profit. You get the least amount of my money, which is nothing. And that's how I feel. And I'm losing faith in a lot of developers over this. I would say, honestly, if Veilguard came out as a live service game, I'd tell BioWare, fuck you, I hope you go under. I mean, it is what it is. And then I would be telling everybody who had a hand in that, I hope you go under. You know, as much as that sucks for the people that work for them, the only way the industry is going to learn is when these big giants go under, because they can't keep their damn hands out of my pocket for little to no gain. Because in my opinion, Diablo 4 is little to no game after you play the single player, because it's more of the same over and over and over. The system that they have built sucks, and the system they have built is just designed to drain your wallet every 3 months. New battle pass, new microtransaction items, new premium battle pass, new microtransaction items. Fuck you guys. You can keep the game. I don't want it. And that's where I'm at. I am at that level to where I'm just like, okay, what's the next cool indie game coming out? What's the cool next single player game coming out? You know, I don't mind a decent multiplayer game that doesn't feel like it's bleeding me dry. Like, I know, you know, Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out. You know, that's going to be a live service game, obviously, right? I mean, it's built around that type of market, but it doesn't feel like it. I don't feel like I'm buying a battle pass. I just feel like that they have some skins to offer, and I'm like, I'm okay with that, but they're not like ramming a season down my throat, it feels like. And so I have not seen or got the inkling that there's going to be a battle pass in the game or anything. I don't know if Nick, if you've seen that, but I don't think there's going to be like a battle pass. They've always sold some minor skin stuff, but nothing that I ever felt was like, oh, I got to have that and I'm missing out. And their skin stuff is usually like $5, if that. But I'm not justifying that. I just don't spend it because I don't feel obliged to, but I also don't feel like they've taken away from the game like Diablo 4 has. I feel like Diablo 4 has stripped so much out of the game to put in the premium battle pass and the microtransaction store that it's like a shell of a game. Like it took the whole like gaming DLC stuff to the max. You know, I remember making the argument and seeing the old infographic back in the day was like a video game was a fast food combo meal, right? It was like, you got a drink, you got your fries, you got your burger, and you got your dessert. And then they were like, oh, you know what? We're just going to offer you the drink and the burger, and the fries are the DLC, and the dessert's another DLC. And then they took that even further, and they're like, now you got the beef patty is the game. And if you want the cheese and the lettuce and the tomato and the buns, that's all extra, you know? And I feel like that's how the gaming industry has gone. And I am to the point where I'm like over it. And if I can't play the game in its entirety without buying microtransaction-y bullshit or battle pass, because the battle pass is the focal point of every Diablo 4 season. The premium, the amount of stuff they put in the premium versus what you get in the free is just laughable. Like if you look at the 3 tiers of the battle pass of Diablo 4, and I say 3 tiers because they have the jump start, which gives you like 10 or 20 levels, I can't remember. You get more like a couple more items in that jumpstart pack for the premium than you don't even get in the normal premium battle pass. And then what you get in the free pass is like a quarter of what you get in the premium one. And I'm just like, this is stupid. So I say to companies like Blizzard, I hope you go out of business, because I'm tired of what you're building and putting out there. You have lost sight of what it is to make a game that's fun for gamers. You have put profits, like every company puts profits ahead of anything else, which is the way of capitalism. But you have put profits so far ahead of everybody else that you stuck your head up your ass and you're snaking back around and going in again. I mean, that's just the point of what it is. You have lost sight of everything. And for that, I hope you don't make it. You know, that's where I'm at with these games. And I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of this piecemeal gaming. We built a whole game, but you're going to get a slice of it. You know, and I can rant about this topic because I played games for the last 30, 40 years. And I'm so tired of what we're gotten into today. That gaming is a former shell of what it used to be when I was younger. And even in my 20s and 30s, it is a former shell of what it is because of the greediness of Ubisoft and Microsoft and Sony and all these other jokes of a company out there that are just, how can I get this guy to pay for the same game 10 ways? I don't do it. I'm done with it.
Yeah. And a lot of the better games out there are, I mean, occasionally a big company will release something that's good, but most of the time it's these smaller companies that release the really good stuff, right? That, it doesn't get talked about as much or has a small group of followers and things like that, we try to, or I try to find and will suggest to you guys to try out and stuff like that. Because they just don't get enough. Unfortunately, they don't have the marketing behind these big companies that market the crap out of their shitty games, right? And I do want to apologize to Piranha Byte. I meant Paradox Interactive, not Piranha Byte. Paradox is the DLC kings.
Paradox, yeah, that's who it was. They make the space sims and all that, the space games.
They have, so on Steam, Paradox has 74 games, 479 pieces of DLC. They are the DLC kings. They are the king of DLC. So I apologize, Piranha Byte.
And a lot of what Paradox puts out is, here's a new race in this game.
Yeah, like I love DLC. City Skylines, but it's like, oh, their DLC is like, here's a new building. It's like $5. And you're like, well, that's cool. I don't really want to spend $5 on a new building.
Yeah, I think Stellaris alone probably has like 20, 30, or 50 freaking DLCs for it.
Oh yeah, Stellaris and City Skylines and the first City Skylines.
And their Europa, their Universalis games.
Yeah, Europia has a lot of it.
Yep.
But yeah, so. Yeah, for the Sony thing, yeah, it's like Shane was saying, and like Pat was saying, it's not, it's not a requirement. It's just highly recommended. It's so recommended that it's almost like a requirement, but it's not a requirement, but it's almost like one.
Coin a new term: voluntold, required told.
Required told. And I would believe it too, right? I mean, a lot of these big companies, exactly what Pat was saying, there a lot of these bigger companies are just looking for minimal effort with maximum profit. And you're always going to have those collection of gamers out there, but gamers like us who have been playing games for a long, long time, for us, maybe it's a newer generation of gamers or something like that, but for us, we're just getting tired of those types of games. A lot of the games I play myself are usually smaller titles, indie titles, titles by smaller. No, not to say that I don't play titles by big companies, but I'm always on the lookout for smaller titles by smaller companies that do smaller niche games and stuff like that, because those end up being the most fun and being the most like, back in the day, like content driven. They're so full of content and like they have really cool mechanics and they're thinking outside the box, right? Because a lot of these big AAA games from these big companies are all, if you sit back and kind of look at them all, they're all the same game, the same formula of thing. Nothing is thought outside the box, or nothing new is tried to be introduced into this that's never happened before, right? It's always, not always, but most of the time it's these smaller indie companies or these smaller companies that really try to make a game that's more like artistic or try to go into a different direction with it and try to think outside the box with their gameplay and stuff like that. And sometimes they come off with these really cool mechanics, right? And really cool ideas and stuff, and really cool stories and various things, like just stuff you don't normally see. And sometimes big companies do that too. But when I say big companies do that, I'm talking about sometimes the bigger ones that do it, but I'm talking about the bigger companies that don't really get talked about a lot. Will sometimes make some really cool games because they're not as big as like Sony or EA or Activision. They're not like $20,000 billion companies. They make a good profit, but they're not like huge. And so they don't try to follow this trend that a lot of the big studios do, which is minimal effort for maximum profit. And yeah, I agree with what Pat's saying. Like, it's going to all come to a head eventually. When that happens, I hope it happens sooner than later, right? I'm tired of that stuff too. Like I said, I try to, I have the most fun, I would say. Like, some of the bigger titles I have fun playing, but I get the most fun out of those odd, like, indie titles or like outside the mainstream type of titles that I run across. I'm like, this is really cool. And then I'll suggest to these guys, you should try this out. This is a really cool game,
And 90% of the time we love what he recommends. So,
yeah, I mean, like, I'll the game I enjoyed the most so far this year was Citizen Sleeper 2 so far. I mean, and I'm really enjoying, I'm really enjoying a couple other games, but that one so far was like really enjoyable and something different, right? If you played the first one, in my opinion was better than the second one, but the second one was still good and it was still kind of something unique and interesting. And I'm playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right now, and I'm really enjoying that. But that's another game that didn't just shove DLC, that didn't shove like microtransactions down my throat. It's like I don't mind a game that has replayability, but I'm usually a one and done gamer. Like, I very rarely go back and play the same game over. Like, it has to be something very unique. And when I mean very unique, I'm thinking like Nier Automata to make me replay it over and over and over again. If a game has multiple endings, it's usually not enough to get me to replay the whole game, especially if I can save scum it, because I will do that to get the multiple endings, unless you have to do something very early on in the game. And then I'm just like not that interested in doing it. I'm not that type of gamer. So that's not me as a gamer. That is some people as a gamer, right? That want to redo this. Like the Baldur's Gate stuff. I can play it once and I'm done, even though I know that the next experience will be different. I have too many games that I want to get to play to want to keep playing the same game for like a year. But there are people out there who buy the game and they constantly play it over and over through the course of a year or two, or however long, and come back to it. That's not me. And I have room for a singular multiplayer live service game, right? Like the one that we typically play is Helldivers. But I haven't bought anything. I haven't put in real world money into that game. And since I first bought it, we played enough of it. And the Ultimate Edition that I bought in the beginning, I had gotten enough when we were playing heavily on PlayStation to get the war bonds that I wanted. I didn't own all of them. I was like, I don't care for anything in that one, but I had enough super credits saved up from the previous one and what you find in the maps to get the one I want. And then we kept doing that. And then, the next multiplayer game that we're going to be putting in a lot of time will be Wilds. And I don't, have to do microtransactions with that one really. So, or battle passes or anything. So I only have time in my life for one game like that. I don't know. Now there's probably other gamers out there who may be able to jump into one or two, but I think the average gamer doesn't have time to pump into like 3 or 4 live service games. So where's your market share going to come from? You have to have a game that's taking market share from somebody else, because it's a flooded market with live service games.
Yeah, adults don't usually. Let me say, adults with families, we don't get that kind of time. So, like you said, Wilds will be our game for a while. Maybe an occasional drop in to, violate a few bugs in Helldivers. And then, of course, Nick doesn't sleep, so he'll play everything. But me and Pat, we have to sleep. And there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of time for the other games we like.
We haven't got the crack that Nick's getting yet somehow. So.
No, he won't share.
I'll have to get you guys a supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Capcom's usually pretty good about with Monster Hunter, they do have some DLC, but like you said, it's usually cosmetic stuff that, if it's cool and you want it, go ahead, but it's not like a buttload of stuff. And then when they do their stuff, they do usually do expansions.
Yes,
and they do proper expansions. Like Iceborne for World was awesome. Iceborne was awesome. It had a whole new continent and a lot of new enemies and stuff. Like, it was a great expansion. And that's what they typically do with Monster Hunter. Like, even Monster Hunter Rise, which some people didn't like as much as World or anything like that, they had the Sunbreak, which was still a great expansion, right? So that will be our multiplayer game that we play for a while, and I just don't have time to put in 2 or 3 of them. It's usually one at a time with maybe something on the side like Helldivers, So,
yeah.
But
we're just gonna have to, keep watching as Sony and all these other developers constantly push the live service schemes, the DLC schemes, loot box schemes, because it's just what it is. It is a scheme. It's,
we're going to have to keep listening.
What can we not do to make more money?
We're going to have to keep listening to Sony and Ubisoft earnings call after earnings call and be like, we're trying for another live service game. We just don't understand why gamers aren't buying our games. They just don't understand why gamers don't want another loot box laden microtransaction battle pass live service game, even if it is only $50.
Activision and Blizzard, they have the right idea. They're bringing loot boxes back to Overwatch because they think that's going to fix it.
Well, that's why I stopped playing. Failed. That's why Dragon Age failed. There wasn't enough loot boxes.
Not enough live service elements.
If it was a live service,
it would have made them millions by now, maybe $1 billion.
They needed more live service and then a Peter slider on the character creator. So
look at Rocksteady. Look what it did for them.
Yeah, that's the problem. All right. Well, we're dragging this poor Yuhei Shishwita, or where the hell you pronounce his name, to the mud here. And we got a little off topic, but what do you all think? Do you think Sony is guiding the hand towards live service, or are they truly allowing developers to go their own way? I'm pretty sure we can all agree. But you made it to the end. We appreciate it. We always do. Give us your thoughts and comments below. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. Hit us up with any responses and questions, because we really enjoy that. We try to respond as best we can. It's usually Nick, because, well, he's awesome that way. So, but until next time, see ya.